Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 27, the week of November 18th, 2023. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, my co-host, Matt Spassi. Matt, how we doing?
We're doing great. It's been an exciting week of television.
It has. We're getting back into it, everyone.
Indeed.
We got a full week.
And I couldn't be happier.
So, we're going to be taking next week off, so I shall say this now. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Eat lots of turkey, but do not make the layered truffle or whatever it's called from Friends, because that's disgusting.
That is disgusting. And if you're living in a country outside the U.S., I don't know, just have a nice week, I guess.
Also, be thankful for things that are not the oppression of indigenous people. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Yes. But, yeah, it really does. Once you separate it from that, it really does become, what are we doing?
It becomes a reason for everyone to be a bunch of gluttons for a day.
Right, yeah. And also for me to have a holiday at work. So
yes, indeed.
If for no other reason I only have to work 4 days this week, I'll take it.
I only have to work 3 because I took Friday off.
Yeah.
But it would have been 4.
Yeah.
But anytime there's a holiday in the middle of the week, if it's towards the end of the week or the beginning of the week, I'm usually just like, I'm going to use one of my PTO days.
Yeah. Although it doesn't really feel like I have 3 days off this week because I'm not working Thanksgiving or Black Friday. So those are kind of a wash. And then I'm not working Tuesday, but that's like my dry run day for like all the shit that I'm gonna make and see like if it actually works.
Yeah.
For stuff on my brain. So like I'm doing like a dry run of like mashed potatoes and carrots that I'm making, like garlic parmesan carrots that I'm making.
I'm coming over to your place then.
They're very tasty. They're like these little.
As long as they taste fine. I'll wait for your dry run.
Yeah, carrot. They're like carrot fries. I think they're called.
Nice.
Like chop up a carrot in like 3 ways, and it's very good. But also I'm making like peanut butter fudge and chocolate chip cookies, and I tried earlier today to make peanut butter rolls, which did not go well. But we're gonna try again on Tuesday.
My mom, my whole life I was raised by my mom and her partner. And her partner was the cook in the family. And a couple of years ago, her partner passed away. And so now my mom has been doing Thanksgiving dinner for the last few years. And it's been interesting. Each year something has gone wrong. Like drastically wrong. Like the first year her stuffing was soup. Somehow she put too much liquid in it. I don't know how. But like it ended up very soupy, and I tried to be nice and be like, no, it's not that bad. Oh God, it was disgusting. And I love stuffing. Like stuffing is my favorite part of Thanksgiving meal. And then last year she burnt the turkey. She forgot it was in the oven. Which I don't know how you forget that. That's like the most important part of the meal, but whatever. So we'll see how this year goes.
Yeah, there's kind of a running joke in my family that take however long it will take to cook a turkey, and then add an hour.
Yep.
And then that's when we'll have turkey. Because it's been like that for the last 5 years, where my stepdad goes, turkey just needs a little bit more, I think, and it's like an hour later.
My mom was like, she bought a 15-pound turkey for Thanksgiving this year, and she goes, I don't know if that's going to be enough. And I'm like, okay, Mom, how many people are coming over? She goes, 8. I go, how about 7? And she goes, what do you mean? I go, I don't eat turkey, so 7 people are going to eat a 15-pound burger. And I was like, you're fine. That is way too much turkey for 7 people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, I don't think it'll be enough. I think I need to buy another one. I'm like, don't go buy another one, please. Not that I'll be here, but like, please don't, because then I'll have to hear you complain about how there's like so much leftover turkey.
For my family, there's going to be at most 6 other people at Thanksgiving, probably 4 other people at Thanksgiving. So no matter what we do, we're gonna have way too much food.
Yeah.
Like I'm already preparing to have way too much like baked goods in my apartment. So I think this is gonna be the year where I'm like, all right, people are getting fudge and cookies and peanut butter rolls in the mail this year. Um,
Yep.
you're getting peanut butter fudge. You're getting peanut butter fudge. You're getting peanut
We
butter
all
fudge.
get peanut butter fudge.
Yeah, you're all getting peanut butter fudge. Everyone's gonna get a message really quickly about I have way too much of this shit in my apartment. Give me your address. Like you specifically are getting peanut butter fudge this year.
Well, it's funny. So my mom decided last week that she was gonna do a dry run because she really didn't want to make a pumpkin pie. She's like, "Oh, I don't really want to do a pumpkin pie because it's too much sugar, and like a lot of us are really on a low sugar kind of diet. Like I'm a diabetic, my other sister's a diabetic, and like she's just trying to eliminate as much sugar as possible. So she's like, I'm gonna make these keto pumpkin cookies. They're pumpkin snickerdoodles, and I'm like, okay. And she goes, oh, I found another one that's pumpkin cheesecake. She goes, or pumpkin cream cheese or whatever. And she's like, I'm gonna try those too. And I was just like, okay, whatever. So we tried to make them, and I don't know if she did the batter wrong, but the pumpkin cheese cream cheese cookies were like so soft that they like would not hold their shape
Oh,
even after baking them. And the snickerdoodle ones were great. Like I love them. And she thought they were nasty. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'll just eat these on Thanksgiving. Fine. Bye. Like there's a whole container of them because she made like a couple. I'm like, why didn't you just make 1 dozen of each? She goes, well, the batch. And I'm like, oh my God, you could have halved the batch. Like, come on. You are clearly not a baker. But yeah, like it's just funny to watch my mom like do experimentation on food because I'm just like, you are not like this is not your natural habitat, which is also why it's not my natural habitat. And so like I just laugh every time, and I'm like, whatever. I'm taking these cookies home with me when I go back to Jersey. Bye. I was like, I love them. I will eat all of them. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I already know I'm taking the stuff back with me because my mom already makes like enough baked goods to feed us
Small
a
army.
small country. Like,
I remember all the years my grandmother would complain because my uncle at Christmas would make the dinner and he would make the Italian seven fishes. Well, there was only maybe like a dozen of us that ate dinner, but like he made enough for like 3 dozen people. And my grandmother would complain because she's like, my house does not have enough space for all these leftovers. And so we would make all these plates and then go around the neighborhoods and be like, okay, who do we know that doesn't have family this year? Like, so we would just deliver meals to people, which is not a terrible thing, but it was just like, I just remember every year my grandmother just railing on her son because he was just not getting the idea that you can cook less. We will not hate you. Like, cook less. We don't need that much fish. Like, we can say it's a seven fishes without there actually being seven fishes. It's the idea. Once upon a time, we had that many family members, but towards the end of my grandparents' life, like the numbers had dwindled. Like, we don't
right.
need that much food.
Indeed, everyone. But yes, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Um, moving on.
Moving on.
Moving on. So for some news this week, uh, perhaps our last strike update for a while, at least.
Mm-hmm.
SAG-AFTRA is moving to vote on their new deal, which is perhaps more complicated than had once been believed.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite have the protections against artificial intelligence, and particularly how the studios will implement that as maybe some had first hoped.
Yeah, I was reading something where it was like it's a very wishy-washy way of dealing with AI. They were like, well, if you're this kind of person on this project, you're allowed to say no to the AI thing without losing your job. But if you're not this kind of person, I'm like, that's such a mess. Like, what? That's so messy. But hopefully they'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing a lot of people are saying is that we might just be in the same spot 3 years from now when
Hmm.
the next contract expires,
Yeah.
and we have to hash all this out again. So, and again, we don't know how all of SAG-AFTRA is going to vote. It seems fairly likely that it's gonna go through
Hmm.
at this point, but there have been a lot of detractors to it.
Yep.
So we will see how that goes. Um, it seems entirely possible this will go through, though. But this does not seem to have stopped everyone else from preparing for TV to come back in earnest.
Hmm.
Um, ABC has announced their post-strike return dates, starting in well, starting in January. January 22nd, The Bachelor season 28 and 2020 come back. February 7th, The Connor season 6, Not Dead Yet season 2, Abbott Elementary season 3 for a 1 hour premiere, and then Judge Steve Harvey, which was apparently a show that existed.
Wait, that's a show? I
I
didn't realize that was a
did
thing.
not know. Uh, and then February 18th, American Idol season 22 for a 2 hour premiere, and What Would You Do, which I believe is the show that is the closest that we've come to the Stanford experiments in real life. Um, February 20th is Will Trent season 2, The Rookie season 6, The Good Doctor season 7. Incidentally, the
The Good
Good
Lawyer is
Lawyer
not going
starring
forward.
Kennedy McMahon is not going forward.
Yep. Which makes me so upset
Yes. Um,
for non good lawyer reasons.
right. Yeah. Purely Kennedy McMahon reasons.
Purely
Um,
Kennedy McMahon.
yeah.
Don't get it twisted, people. I do not care about the good lawyer.
And then March 14th, 911 season 7, Grey's Anatomy season 20, and Station 19 season 7. Which I was thinking about this the other day. I think it's funny that 911 is known as the gay firefighter show when Station 19 should be the gay firefighter show.
Which is funny because 911, I mean, yes, they have Henrietta, who is, a lesbian and is married and she's one of the paramedics. But like the reason people call it the gay firefighter show is because so many fans ship two of the male characters together. But I'm like, they're not actually gay. Like, don't call it the gay firefighter show because they're not actually gay.
Right. When
I
Station
mean, we
19.
want them to be, but they're not.
Right, right. Whereas Station 19 is a
Actually
firefighter show that has canonical queer relationships in them and has multiple queer characters.
right. It's just like,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
Um,
and
speaking of 911, I had messaged my previous co-host because I don't think our podcast about 911 is going to come back just because we haven't recorded anything since the last season ended and like whatever. Anyways, but I like messaged her and I was like, "Oh, look, we have a date for 911." And she's like, "Why did I forget that it's on ABC now?" And they go, "Because it's not a normal thing for shows to switch mid-series. Like, it's weird."
yeah,
Oh, I'm very excited about the Connors, though. I'm very, very excited.
yeah. And then CBS also announced their returning lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ghost.
for February 11th, uh, kicking off with Tracker, which I believe is the new Justin Hartley series.
Okay.
February 12th, The Neighborhood Season 6, Bob Hart's Abishola Season 5, NCIS Season 21, and
Wait, the
NCIS,
neighborhood is still around?
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
This is where we're at with TV, apparently. NCIS Season 21 and NCIS Hawaii Season 3. Um, February 13th, FBI Season 6, FBI International Season 3, FBI Most Wanted Season 5. Because CBS is apparently trying to do their own version of the Chicago verse,
Mm-hmm.
I
Because
guess.
isn't FBI a Dick Wolf?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that is right. On February 15th, Young Sheldon season 7, which is the final season of that show, which, gun to my head, I would have told you had already ended.
I thought it had to. It's fine.
I don't know when it would have ended, but I would have sworn it had ended.
I thought it. Yeah, Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. And then Go season 3, which I'm particularly excited about. So Help Me Todd season 2. And then on February 16th, SWAT season 7, which is the final season of that show. Fire Country season 2. And Blue Bloods season 14.
Listen, I love Blue Bloods so much. I really do. However, that show should have ended like 2 seasons ago.
Right.
There's only so much you can talk about cops without it really becoming a push for propaganda. Like,
I feel like we probably crossed that line a while ago.
to be fair, I mean, I give this one a little more leeway than shows like Law and Order and stuff, because Law and Order, really, you can tell they're really trying to like push that narrative of cops are really good. Because Blue Bloods doesn't always do that. Like, they have a lot of
Right.
storylines where there's cops that are really shitty, and and it and it centers on this one particular cop family, which I'm like, that's cool. Like, it's more about the family than it is really about the cops themselves. But like, yeah, they deal with a lot of bad cops, and it's just like, whatever. And they don't glass over the fact that Donnie Wahlberg's character is a shitty, terrible cop because he gets very aggressive. They're always like, Danny, you shouldn't be doing that. It's just like, whatever. But anyway, it's again a show that should have ended probably around season 10, and we would have been totally fine. Like, go off with 10 seasons. You're perfectly great. Tom Selleck will still have a career. It's fine.
Uh, Continuing on February 18th, I got 60 Minutes, The Equalizer season 4, and CSI Vegas season 3.
Mm-hmm.
February 28th, Survivor season 46. Uh, on February 29th, Elsbeth, which is the new show from the Kings, bringing back the character from The Good Wife and The Good Fight,
Oh, cool.
starring Carrie Preston, which I'm super excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then March 13th, The Amazing Race season 36 comes back. So that is all the shows that we know are currently coming back.
I This is show related because I follow Ice T, because I love the dude, and he's probably one of the main reasons I still watch SVU, because his character is just ridiculous. Um, but he tweeted, "We officially start filming season 24 of SVU on the 27th. Sorry for the delay. Wasn't personal, just business."
Just
And I'm like, I love this dude. Like, I also just love him because he doesn't hold back on his opinions on stuff because I mean, like, dude had a rap career. You know what I mean? Like, he's a rap artist turned actor. So like whatever, but I'm just like that when I saw that post this morning, I was just like, sorry, nothing personal, just business. Oh man. Anyways, it's just been business, guys. Nothing personal. We just, you know, we're getting back to it.
We are. We are. Yeah, we'll be. It looks like we're gonna be fully back in swing by February.
Yeah, that's exciting. It's a little sooner than I anticipated. Like when I started seeing some of these like, you know, premiere announcements coming out, they were saying things like March, and so I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like that's what you and I had kind of predicted.
Yeah.
But then then we started seeing some of them roll out from February, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's get it done.
Which is on the one hand great, but on the other hand, I wanted there's a perverse part of me that wanted us to continue doing Dimension 20 just by necessity.
Well, I feel like we can't just like abandon it because
No, I mean like after Fantasy High of like, oh, there's
oh
so
yeah,
much
yeah,
good
yeah, I
shit in
get you.
sophomore year.
Well, I mean, I'm invested at this point, and I'm like, you know, maybe we still should.
Maybe we still should. Like,
And
legitimately,
we just
maybe we still should.
like we kind of discussed before we started recording, like we turn it into a situation of, all right, well, this week we're going to talk about this show, this show, this show, and next week we're going to talk about this show, this show, and this show, and it like be a little different. That way, we still have room for Dimension 20,
Yes.
and we don't skip on all the shows.
And Adventure Time. And Adventure Time.
Adventure Time.
Because like the funny thing about Adventure Time, because we'll wrap up sometime in March, and there's still like 4 specials after that,
Plus
and an
the
entire
like
and an
new series
entire
that came out.
yeah, the entire other series. So it's like
We have content for days.
we do really. Uh, so we could continue talking about Adventure Time through like May, conceivably.
And like, not gonna lie, we'll have to have a discussion. Like, you know, obviously off. I about said off camera, but off mic about like what shows we really want to focus on and things like that. Because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna continue having this situation of I'm willing to watch anything that you put on the list, like.
Right. Yes.
Because there are some TV shows out there that I'm like, I'm sure Drew watches this, but I sure as hell won't. And I'm sure there might be things that you feel that way about
Oh yeah,
with
yeah,
regards to me.
yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna say it now. There's no chance in hell I'm watching The Connors.
Oh, that's fine. I'm
Yeah,
fine with
no,
that.
no,
I'm
they're
totally
not.
fine with that. I'm well aware that I am one of like maybe I don't know how that show keeps getting renewed. I'm not lying. I am not lying because like they talk about how it's like one of the, you know, one of their best shows on the air and I'm like, "Well, who else is fucking watching this shit because like I don't see anybody else talk about it." Who the fuck's watching it? It's all the
It's
middle-aged people, I know.
it's
I'm well aware.
it's like the Big Bang Theory, where it's like the it was supposedly the biggest show in the country, but you did not know anyone who actually watched it.
Yeah. Uh,
But I am really excited to like get into this podcast like in earnest.
yeah, exactly. We're getting there and it's going to be so much fun.
Oh, so excited. Um, yeah, yeah. So let's move on into the goat. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Matt pick a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them up against each other on a poll on Twitter and TikTok. Last week, I nominated WandaVision episode 8 entitled Previously On. And you nominated, what did you nominate? What the fuck?
Ben from Evil.
Bright, yes.
Was
And
it Ben?
Mads
Yes.
nominated Ben Shakur from Evil.
Yes.
WandaVision won this week.
Cool beans.
So, that in mind, Mads, you get to go first with your new submission to the GOAT.
Alrighty. So I'm taking this one back quite a few years. I was thinking the other day about like TV episodes that have like really remained in my brain, like note for note over the course of my like TV viewing history, which there aren't that many. And one of the like first ones that I can remember is from ER, season 8, episode 21, On the Beach. And this is the episode where the entire Cook County ER finds out that Dr. Mark Green has passed away from his cancer. And it is a very emotionally heavy episode, where it goes from clips of the ER staff like all reacting to it, and the guy and like the younger newer members of the ER family being like, who is this guy, and then having to kind of explain who Mark Green is, and then two scenes of Mark Green's final days, based on what the words are in the letter, and they do it through the letter. And it's just such a beautiful episode, and it's one of honestly the best episodes of television I've ever seen, and one of the best endings for a character that has been killed off of a show. Like a lot of times when we get characters that get killed off, they end up having like overly dramatic deaths for no reason, or their death is just not satisfying or doesn't make sense. But with Mark Green, it was very in line with the kind of character he was and the legacy that he left behind even after no longer working at Cook County ER. So my pick this week is ER season 8 episode 21, On the Beach.
Nice. That is a good pick. I've actually been thinking a lot about ER in terms of like GOAT submissions. Because there's so many good possible picks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with some lighter fare here. And I was thinking about this with the return of Hilda on Netflix, which I believe comes back in a couple weeks. Which I was gun to my head, I was actually really surprised is coming back because it had 2 seasons and then it had like what was supposedly a wrap up movie, and now it has a 3rd season coming out after this, which I'm very pleasantly surprised by. But I was really thinking about the show, and I watched this episode earlier today while I was unsuccessfully making peanut butter rolls. And it is the show's 2nd episode in its 1st season, entitled "The Midnight Giant." And luckily, this is so early in its run that I don't have to really get into like what Hilda is properly about as a show, because it does go into like a pivoting point after this episode. But Hilda is about a little girl living in the forest with her mom. Hilda is voiced by Bella Ramsey of Last of Us and Game of Thrones fame. And the best way I know how to describe this is the way that Emily Vanderwerf once did, is Studio Ghibli by way of like Scandinavia. That whole kind of vibe, which is a great vibe. And so the second episode finds again Hilda living in the forest with her mom in this nice little what I heard someone describe as like a quintessentially like IKEA house, like this little IKEA
Mm-hmm.
cabin, which is very cute and adorable. Um, and them coming to realize that there is a invisible race of tiny elves living in the forest that do not like her and her mom's presence there, and they
Mm-hmm.
keep stepping on houses unwittingly. Um, and the
Yeah.
elves want her gone. And it's a whole journey in this episode of Hilda. And some of this was in the previous episode as well, but really narrowing in on the second episode of Hilda going to talk to the mayor and then going to talk to the prime minister. Now she has to go talk to the king because her her mom and her family have long been a enemy of the elves. This is
Mm-hmm.
very funny little episode. Um, while also in this kind of quasi B plot of Hilda meeting this very ancient giant who's been away for a very long time and now comes back to see the world very changed and was supposed to come back and meet another giant, but she didn't show up. And and Hilda trying to like reunite the two of them. And the episode ends on this really melancholic beat of the two giants reuniting, and they trample Hilda's house as they're walking by. Um, all the while, Hilda's mom has her foot inside an elf's house, um, and it's all this. You know, you talk about like entertainment for children and entertainment aimed at children, and trying to tell them something in a non-lectury kind of way. And it's this whole thing of like, yeah, sometimes bad shit happens. It just kind of happens. And your perspective is not someone else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the probability of you hurting someone or someone else hurting you is not insubstantial.
Right.
um, but it is throughout this very beautiful episode, kind of bathed in like soft blues and reds that I really appreciate. Um, so yeah, that is my pick for this week. Hilda Chapter 2, The Midnight Giant.
Nice. I never knew this was a show that existed.
I've watched it a few times. It's very enjoyable. Uh, I'm again very excited for it to come back because I did not think it would. Like, gun to my head, I did not think, like I thought the wrap up movie was gonna be it, especially Netflix being Netflix and its relationship with animation. um, so you can go vote for both of these on Twitter and TikTok, and you'll have 2 days to vote once the polls go live. And be sure to like and share on all your social platforms. And without anything else, let's move on into the main part of our show.
I'm so tired of playing with this bow and arrow. Gonna give my heart away, leave it to the other girls to play. For I've been a temptress too long. Yes, give me a
So
reason.
to be in keeping with the animation, we are continuing our Adventure Time rewatch with Season 5, episode 42, entitled James. Season 5, episode 43, Root Beer Guy. And season 5, episode 46, Rattle Balls. So this is a very PB centric arc of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with James. We've talked a lot on this podcast about like how PB is as like a leader and even as like a person. And like I said a couple weeks ago, like with like Frost and Fire, this is like one of the worst things that Finn ever does. I don't know if this is like one of the worst things that PB does, but it is extremely messed up.
Mm-hmm.
With doing, you know, PB doing her particular kind of arithmetic and going, we have to sacrifice James. But I'm going to make all that math on my own.
Yeah. I like watched it's funny because when I was watching this episode and like it gets to the part where PB's like revealing to to Finn and Jake that like she's decided unilaterally that she was going to sabotage all of Finn's ideas because again she knew that they weren't going to work and blah 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 blah. I was just like literally thinking, I was like, Drew and I have done this before. We've talked about this before. Like this is very PB.
Yeah.
She's very much, oh, I know this isn't going to work, so I'm going to mess it up so I can prove that it's not going to work and then do my own plan.
Right, yes. But also, and this like really gets into like the messed up bit of this is how it shows that like we know that PB loves the candy people.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's that thing of like people ask like, what would you do if you meet God?
Uh-huh.
What you do if you meet God is run away as fast as you can.
Right.
Because your God, while they might love you and care about you, you are almost nothing to them.
Yeah.
It's that old parent threat of like, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. It's a zero sum to them. You know, so
yeah,
God,
so like
it's nothing.
when they're like, oh my gosh, you're like, Finn is like, oh my gosh, so you're like letting James die, and he's like, but I had offered to do it and you wouldn't let me, and she's like, well, I can't make a new you because you're not a candy person, but I can remake James, and I'm like, that is so fucked up. Like that is so messed up.
Yeah, because then while you might care about your candy people, their life holds no value.
Right. Because she can easily just make a new one.
Yeah, you can do anything you want with the candy people. Like, I mean, like we this is a little further, but like there's a line in Root Beer Guy where what was it? Cherry cream soda goes like, I'm a cherry cream soda.
Yep.
Not I'm cherry cream soda, but I am a cherry cream soda.
Yep.
Which implies that like PB has made numerous cherry cream sodas.
And that there's no distinguishing factor about this cherry cream soda over the other cherry cream sodas.
Right. So like, how many cherry cream sodas have there been? How many root beer guys have there been?
How many are there still roaming around somewhere that we just don't see?
Right. Yes. And it's like, I know fundamentally PB is a good person, you know, but it's like,
well, it's because the decisions she's making are coming from a place of she believes that this is the best way, the only way, the right way. Therefore, she's not thinking about the moral compass of it all. She's just thinking in terms of very simplistic. This is the best way to do things. Therefore, this is the way we're going to do things.
Right, yeah. Like, there's a quote I heard once of, like, it's very easy to be a saint in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think that is the way that PB operates.
Yep.
Of, like, yeah, it'd be great if I could, like, do the great, awesome things. But, like, that is not the world I am left with.
Mm-hmm.
I have a world of abomination goo monsters. Being brought back from the Simon and Marcy episode, who are actually, like, legitimately menacing.
Yep.
Like, legitimately scary, because we know how scary they are.
Yes.
And we know how dangerous they are.
Like the fact that they can just like punch their way through a ship.
Right, yes. But it does bring up the question of, like, if these goo monsters are still around, why have they not been a problem before?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because there is, like, some, like, there's been hundreds of years that have gone by.
Yep.
And I think the only reason that they are a threat here is because, like, PB does not have the tools she needs. You know? Like, it's that old argument about, like, Batman fighting someone else. It's like, Batman has prep time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the exact same thing here. Of, like, PB's fine if she has the tools necessary to do the job.
Right.
You know? If she has the shit she needs, she can do anything.
Yep.
And so, like, the only reason they are dangerous here is because, like, PB was caught unaware.
Yes.
But it does bring up the question of, like, where have these goo monsters been for all this time?
Yeah. Where have they been, indeed?
Where have they been? But I do like the end of this episode of, like, Finn and Jake being like, wait, how am I supposed to feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
Because this was awful. It was terrible.
And we got a glimpse of it at the beginning of the episode because, again, the way
Right, yeah.
because we kind of skip around a bit. Like I'm watching the beginning of this episode and I'm like, is this something a continuation from the previous episode? Because I'm so confused. And then it goes into 1 week ago, and I was like, oh, never mind. No. This is them dealing with what has happened.
Yeah.
And like you see Jake very upset, and it's just like interesting, and then you find out why, and you're just like, oh, okay, that's even more intriguing because it's not very typical of Jake to because they've been in these kinds of situations with PB before, and it's not like it's the first candy person they've seen perish or whatever, but like for some reason they had a love-hate relationship with James in the very short time that they knew him. And then with him gone, I think it really hit Jake very hard that like that could have been Finn if PB hadn't stepped in. And so I think that's kind of like playing into his emotions about it.
Yeah, well, and it's also just the way that James died.
That too. But
And the machinations that happened that led to James dying.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like we see that like in the next scene of like Finn going like, how am I supposed to feel about this?
Yeah.
James is here. He's kind of here. A version of James exists.
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels awful. And it's still like it's like I don't know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
which I think plays like really nicely. This is like excellent episode placement of like the next episode being Root Beer Guy,
Yeah.
because the
Once again,
logical
it's
rational part of your brain, the logical rational part of your brain is like, of course Finn and Jake didn't kill PB, but there's like enough tangible doubt based on like everything that happened in Days where you're like, maybe they did just snap.
Right. And honestly, it's also a great follow up to it, because here's another example of PB creating a situation where where one party doesn't know all, at least one party doesn't know all the information, and so she's manipulating the how things play out, and it's like, that's a little shady. Like, I get you were kind of trying to test your security system, but like, there are better ways to do that.
On the other hand, um, like as we hear Rattleball say in the next episode, like um, the beginning guards are goofs. Like
They are big goofs.
they're pretty dumb. Like when you really break it down, the fact that they are the Candy Kingdom's police force is alarming.
Also, it kind of plays into, how much of this is how the writers view certain aspects of our own culture.
Right. Yes.
That, how many times in a like big sensationalized court case have we heard about cops messing up investigations or messing up situations that could have been prevented? Like, how many times?
Right. Yeah.
How many times have armchair detectives figured out a case better than the cops?
Right.
Especially lately, like in the last like few years, it seems like more podcast hosting people have figured out true crime cases.
Right. Like even just like Michelle McNamara
Yeah.
as
Yep.
being like one of the most prominent examples of that.
Yeah. But anyways. But I think it's also funny that that's what the writers chose the security to be, is bananas. Because what do we think of with bananas? Like, they're a silly gag for comedians, banana peel makes people slip and fall. Like, they're very much a funny, goofy, non-serious imagery, and yet they're supposed to be the serious, intimidating security force.
Right. Right. Well, like, and like this kind of takes us into Rattleballs, but like they are the counterpoint to like the actual menacing force that PB came up with.
Yeah.
Of like these
And that she
basically murdering robots.
she went to extremes. She went to the murderous extreme, and she's like, oh no, that's way too bad, so I need to like lighten up a bit. And instead she picks the people that can't do shit. She doesn't
Right.
find the happy medium, she finds the two extremes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
which
is why it's so nice to see, root beer guy become the captain.
yeah.
You're the captain of the banana squad. Don't question it. It's just, it is what it is.
It's fine.
But yeah, these 3 episodes we watched very much play into showing the less savory sides and parts of PB,
Right.
and the things that she has the capabilities of doing, and people in her kingdom and people that respect her, like Finn and Jake, just kind of shrug off like, whatever, it's PB.
Right, yeah. Like there was another episode of Adventure Time I was watching, where like PB sent like Finn and Jake and Marceline on like low quests to get something, and I think Marceline asked like, "What does she want this for?" And Jake, one of the smartest moments for Jake is like, "Sometimes it's better not to know,"
Yeah.
which is like really PB. Like, what is she gonna do with this? Maybe we don't ask that question.
And it's kind of, again, to go to reality here, it's very similar to how a lot of people in America look at our government. They're like, what don't we know that the government's not telling us? Whatever, they'll tell us when it's important.
Right,
No,
I'm
no,
sure it's
you
not.
should be questioning things. Like, you should not just shrug your shoulders and say, whatever. You should question things.
Right, and I think that's the problem with like where PB is currently, is there's not a person that's like, hey,
Can we talk about this?
yeah, what's going on? Because like Finn and Jake can't be that person. For whatever reason. Jake, because like Jake often seems to like know what's going on better than he lets on. Especially in regards to PB. And Finn just idolizes PB. And Marceline's not that person. She's just fully not that person. You know?
Yeah.
Like, Marceline is as hands off as you can get. Yeah, so she really needs like that person who can call her out on her shit,
Yep.
which the show currently does not have.
Yep.
Mm.
Oh, PB. You make us think that you're this cute, bubbly little princess, but no. You are
Right. And
ruthless.
that's another thing I wanted to mention is like that demonstrates like the really strong way that like one of Adventure Time's strongest strengths, which is like
Yes.
the way that the show ages with its audience. Of like, hey, here's this like nice pink, um, you know, cute princess. But as you get older, you realize like, oh, there's more depth, there's more complexity, there are harsher edges to this
Yep.
person than I thought when I was younger. Because when you're young, you have like this very specific viewpoint of like the people in your life, and especially like some of the older people in your life.
Yes.
Like, I remember like specifically in like that 13, 14-year-old range, seeing like people, people like PB in like 18, 19, 20, and thinking like, oh, they have it together. And then you realize, no, they don't. They just really don't. They do not know what they're doing any better than you do, honestly.
Right. And that's why this show is so good. It's just so good.
Yeah. But so for next week, or 2 weeks from now, I should say, we are going to be talking about. Well, we're coming to the end of season 5, finally.
Sorry.
So we are going to be talking about episode 48, Betty. And technically, we're talking about 4 episodes next week, but 2 of them are two-parter. Episode 50, Lemon Hope Part 1, and episode 51, Lemon Hope Part 2. And then episode 52, Billy's Bucket List.
Okay.
So, we're getting into some interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then season 6 is a complete fucking mind trip. We're getting into the point of like the like Adventure Time Cartoon Network era of like miniseries and events.
Mm-hmm.
That started in like season 7, I think, and I have no idea how we're gonna cover that. Because it'll be like these 8-episode long miniseries in the middle of the season, and it's like I don't know.
Yep.
So let's move on to our next show, which is Dimension 20, Fantasy High, episode 8, entitled Havoc on the Halfpipe. So another battle episode.
Yep.
How we feeling?
I'm gonna just come out and say this. I'm proud of them because they're finally starting to figure out strategy and teamwork.
Yes. Yes,
It made it a very exciting and captivating battle because you were just like, all right, this person's going over here to help this person. And I liked in like the final sequence, like the big finale, like that Gorgug is like, just, I'm gonna carry Riz. Riz doesn't have enough for this, so I'm just gonna carry him. And I'm like, I love that. That's cute.
Yeah. Well, and more than that, like the active mindset of like, what are we here to do?
Yep.
Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are we like taking the the lessons from Fabian Sad of like, you're going into a battle. What do we want out of this battle? And what are we trying to do here? Because the skaters and the golem are not the thing.
Right. They're trying to get information. They're trying to figure out, what's going on.
Yeah, so I like them keeping like a really clear head about like their objectives, their goals, and like not purely focusing on the golem, but like also on the owls and the
right. Like there was a moment where I forget who it was like, oh, can I do an insight check on why the skaters looked like terrified of the fire, and then we're just like, okay, whatever. And you could tell in Brennan's face that he was like, good job, I'm proud of you guys. Because that's what you need to be doing.
Yep. Yeah, so I liked all of that. I liked Kristen winking for no reason throughout the episode at eyes.
It was very funny. They're like, wait, did you just no. I'm just winking.
Just winking.
Also, it's just I loved the voice that Brennan did for the creature in the deep. Well, I forget what his name was. But
Gorthalax.
Yes, like I loved the voice for that, but also I just loved like that they asked questions. Like they were like, "Oh, we can ask this guy questions." And like his answers were funny and also serious, but like they were funny.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh no, I was just messing with them. Like I just was like, I don't need sacrifices at all. I just mess with them." I eat the souls of bad guys. and then there's there's what's her name? She's like, Daddy?
Yes.
But the saga continues of, are you my daddy?
Yeah. No. I feel very comfortable saying that is actually fixed that.
No, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I feel very
I
like
feel very
putting a
comfortable
pin in that
knowing that.
one.
But I just love that that's been Fig's goal, and also Gorgug has been trying to find his parents. It's all just been really funny just having those things, but like, yeah, this was definitely their best battle. It was very well handled. They went in, they were like, oh right, we use Elvish for our secret language, and like they remembered that and they used that. And and Gorga continues to just stand there like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like
Um,
they played to their strengths, and I loved seeing that.
yeah. Yeah. And I should mention that there was a little bit of I meant to dig deeper into this week, but I forgot. But there was controversy when this episode originally came out about the use of a golem as the kind of creature in this episode.
Okay.
Particularly in like the way the dwarves are typically represented in fantasy as being kind of Jewish in certain ways,
Yeah.
and that kind of translating into using a golem and a little clumsy.
Yeah.
Which I had to
I
like,
didn't even I didn't even think of that,
yeah,
honestly.
I also had to have that pointed out to me too. But you live and you learn, and I feel like, but even so, I don't feel like it's an egregious use of golems, even though it could be more tactfully
Mhm.
used.
Yeah, I feel like the golem was just there. Like, like
Right,
he wasn't really a big player in the whole thing.
right, yeah.
Anyways.
Anyways, um, just thinking of something. I can't remember what it was. Oh, that's also excellent production design. Like the
Yeah.
models, the minis, the design of the Golem and Gortalax, just excellent.
Yeah, their team is hella awesome. Like
They,
every single battle sequence, it's so cool to just see the board. Like that's the main thing I look at with the battle sequences, because I'm like, I want to see these details. I want
yeah,
to see all of this and how it plays out, and chef's kiss.
yeah. They have a truly exceptional art department. Particularly Rick Perry, who's the lead like art designer, just
Mhm.
every week kills it. Um, yeah, just outstanding.
Amazing.
um, oh, so you went back and watched the last part of last episode?
Yes.
Yes. Let's continue this conversation from last week of sexy rat.
Sexy rat.
Just Emily Axford.
I I love when they were talking at the end of this episode. They're like, "By the way, have you seen a rat around here?" And he's like, "I see rats all the time." And they're like, "No, this is a sexy rat."
Sexy rat.
I can't. It's just
Just Emily does things sometimes that are insane. Like really to speak to the people who have watched more of Dimension 20 than you have. like the Hilda incident from sophomore year. Like, she's just out of her mind. No, but specifically, like that moment between her and Brennan of like, and I think I used the GIF for our Twitter post of like, I need you, Emily Axford, to describe to me what a sexy rat looks like. Like, I love the moments where like Emily does something crazy and Brennan decides to check her on it. I'm like, no. You've chosen this path. Now we're gonna fucking walk it.
You've chosen chaos, and we are going to embrace it.
Yeah.
She's honestly the most unhinged member of this team, and I love it. I live for it. Always.
You have not seen anything yet. If anything, Emily outdoes herself next week.
Yes, I'm excited.
It's
Well, 2 weeks, but yeah, I'm excited.
really insane. Like just top notch insanity from Emily Oxford.
Bring it on.
So let's move on to our first actual show of the week, which is For All Mankind, Season 4, Episode 1, Glasnost, on Apple TV Plus. So I checked back in with this after watching a little bit of Season 1. And so For All Mankind is an alternative history telling of the space race in the late 60s, which really kicks off when the Russians reveal that they have a female astronaut. And history kind of takes a detour from that point.
A detour from that, yeah.
Yeah. When when NASA decides to bring on a roster of female astronauts of their own, and it's kind of just tracking the way that history changes from that point. And so every season of the show has kind of tracked a decade. We are now up through up into the 2000s.
Yeah, because so I went into this having watched nothing on this show prior to this first episode. And I was like, thought to myself, okay, Mads, should you read recaps for the prior seasons? And I decided to go with chaos. And I decided to just be like, you know what? I'll figure it out as we go. I feel like I was not that far off on like understanding what was going on. Like, do I know who these characters are, like their names or anything? Not really. Like, I still haven't figured out people's names, but I've kind of gotten a gist of what's going on and what has happened and the emotionality behind what happens in this episode. And like, I got the idea that this is an alternate timeline when I saw one of the headlines flash by talking about John Lennon. And I was like, excuse me? This is the 90s. I'm sorry, what? And then I was just like, oh, never mind. Oh, wait. Al Gore? What? Clinton was never president? What? And so it was just like, oh, this must be like alternate timeline stuff. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'll go with it. So that was how I figured things out. As someone who hadn't watched any of it, it really caught me up fairly quickly. And it also, like, throughout the episode catches you up without, like, having it be a detriment to the story.
Yes. Yeah. All of it feels, like, really integral to, like, what they're doing.
Also, wait, we've colonized the moon? What?
Right. Yeah.
Americans, we've got to stop being colonizers. Just stop.
Got to stop.
We've reached the moon. Just
We've
stop.
reached the moon. We've reached Mars. Like, we just. Also, I really like that the show has finally started to allow the characters to show their age. Like, Joel Kinnaman, because this is like a complaint that I've heard over the last couple seasons.
Mhm.
That like Joel Kinnaman and like a lot of the other characters don't look like they have aged like 10, 20 years since like the first season. Joel Kinnaman looks properly like he's aged 30 years in this.
Is he the one that his daughter has a son and she's like asking him to come back?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I'm like I said, I'm still catching up. Yeah, he looks old.
Yeah. He looks properly old now. Like a lot of the people on the show look like 30 years have actually passed.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see um the whole process of like getting people to come up to Mars and the moon to like
Mhm.
do work there, and they're like calling on like average everyday Americans. They're like, "Oh, you've worked on drilling ships. That works perfectly for us. Come sign up." And it's just like, "Okay, that's interesting." And it's like, "Okay, but if you do the moon, it's only this many months, but if it's Mars, you're sorry, you're gone for a few years." Like, what?
Right.
Like, what? What's the benefit of that? I mean, I get some people, if they don't have families, they're like, "Sure, whatever, 4 years, no problem."
Right. Yeah.
But it's very interesting because like I would have thought going into this knowing it's a thing about space that like they're only dealing with people that are trained to be quote unquote astronauts, like that they've gone to all the schooling, and this guy, this Joe Schmo, is looking for a job, and his friend is like, "Go apply to be a worker on the moon," and I'm just like, "Wait, what?" Mr. Joe Schmo with his high school education? All right, great.
Hmm.
But I mean, it
Yeah.
makes sense. It does make sense, like what they're doing there. They're drilling and stuff. So, like, they need people that know how to do that. I'm not begrudging him because he doesn't have the education. It's just not something I feel like I've seen on television before. I feel like
Right.
these space shows that deal with astronauts specifically and NASA literally don't deviate from that subset of people.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 And I also like the public perception of NASA in this episode of like
Mm-hmm.
being kind of like nefarious and shadowy in the same way that like a lot of people view government agencies.
Yeah.
Because our current like conception of NASA is like kind of a non-entity,
Mm-hmm.
kind of nothing
Yep.
really. And here they're like an actual like it feels like normal people talk about NASA the same way we talk about like the NSA or something.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's very interesting to see NASA still be this big deal in the 2000s in this show because, like, in my lifetime that I've remembered, like, I think there was like one or two, like there was maybe like one shuttle launch that I remember. And I'm like, I remember going to the Cape Canaveral in Florida with my family and
Right.
being like, "Oh, this is they're like, this is where the first one launched." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" Like I didn't have much of a concept of space travel, like, or of NASA, because it wasn't that big of a thing anymore by that time.
Yeah.
And so it's like weird. It's weird
Yeah.
to see it this way.
Well, yeah, and I feel like that's like the beauty of like this alternate history take of like this is like a world where like the Challenger explosion didn't happen and 9/11
Mhm.
didn't happen.
Yep.
Two things that like massively took public interest away from NASA.
Yeah. Yep. And
For
like government
very
funding
different reasons.
away from space travel.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an intriguing show.
Yeah.
I might
Yeah.
have to. Feel like I've said this a couple times now. I might have to go back and watch the other seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on into our next show. NCIS Sydney, season 1,
Mhm.
episode 1. Gone Vision, which is a perfectly good pun.
I don't know how many NCIS shows you've watched. Have you watched all of them, or?
I I was actually thinking about this earlier today. The
Mhm.
I've watched NCIS proper, and I watched a little bit of LA. But like
Mhm.
the the more the NCIS shows come out, like the more it kind of strains credulity, like where it's set.
Yeah.
It's like the NCIS proper, Washington D.C., Annapolis. Okay,
Mhm.
fine. Yeah, makes sense.
Los Angeles
L.A.
makes sense.
Yeah, L.A. Okay, fine, fine.
New Orleans does not make sense.
Okay, yeah, you all are stretching with this one, and then Hawaii. It's like, okay, yeah, we got Navy shit there, but like,
It's not a huge presence. Yeah,
should
like
we be there?
yeah. Well, and so this is literally, I'm watching this episode with my mom, and my mom and I have seen episodes of NCIS proper. We like growing up, that was one of the shows that we watched. Like our family watched at night. Like it was just something that was always on, and like whatever, we watched it. My little sister, named her cat Gibbs, like whatever. This show literally feels like NCIS proper, different font.
Right. Yeah.
Because like I recently rewatched the pilot episode of NCIS proper, and I was like, this is kind of exactly what happened in the NCIS proper premiere, where they had someone who was not technically part of an NCIS team be involved in a crisis that involved the NCIS and
Right.
then get recruited into NCIS. Like that's basically what this did, just a different font. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like, and we're in Sydney, and that makes no sense at all.
Yeah. No. Most of the episode is like, how can we make this NCIS?
Like you forget that it's Sydney. I'm not kidding. You forget that it's Sydney. Like
Yeah.
you could literally just have two Sydney transplants put in DC or LA, and it would have been the same show. The location is not very clear. It doesn't really matter. And so it's like, did we really need this show? Probably not.
No, probably not. And like the whole like driving force of the show is like um a nuclear submarine being placed in Sydney, and you're like, that probably shouldn't be there. They're right. That probably shouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
Uh but I like the cast here. I like
Mhm.
Olivia Swan, who I know from Legends of Tomorrow, where she played Astra. Um,
Yeah,
although she is giving a kind of odd performance.
it's a fun dynamic. Like uh, from NCIS proper, I loved Ducky, the the autopsy dude. Like I forget what the actual name for that is. I'm
Uh,
blanking on it right now.
Morticia.
Um, but the pathologist, yeah, the pathologist, whatever. um I love Ducky, and so like this guy that is basically Sydney Ducky, um he's so much fun. But I love that his little like apprentice whatever is very quiet but very smart, and like I
Mhm.
like that dynamic. And I'm intrigued by it. But I was just like, oh, so we have a grumpy guy and a girl that gets on his nerves. I was like, oh, where have I seen this dynamic a million times?
Right. It does feel like a bit like elements of like other NCIS shows that like worked being
Hmm.
placed here. Um,
Yeah.
Like even just like Olivia Swan's line of like never apologize.
Yeah.
You're like, what's happening here?
Again, we see this all the time with franchises though. Like, you know, I've never seen the FBI franchises, but a friend of mine does watch them, and it's like they're like it's literally the same show, just different cast, and you know, the characterizations are very similar. The cases are a little different because they've changed up, you know, what kind of FBI unit it is. And I'm like, "Oh, so like Law and Order." And they're like, "Yeah." Like it's kind of the same dynamics but different cast and different cases. So it's like, all right, how are they going to differentiate Sydney from DC, from Hawaii, which are the only ones that are left? You know what I mean? Like it's like which how are they going to convince us that it's worth our time to keep watching?
Right. And like from what I've seen of Hawaii, this
Hmm.
does not feel distinct from that.
Okay. Yeah, I've
Um,
not watched Hawaii, so
like even just like the kind of vibe and the tone of it and the aesthetic of it as like this kind of bright and shiny direction that
hmm.
was kind of carried over from like LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a
I
whole lot.
loved LA. Like I watched LA almost religiously because of the cast. Like I knew so many faces of that cast when that show came out. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to watch NCIS LA." And I did. I watched it for a very long time, and then I kind of fell off a couple years ago because I was just like, "Oh, this is getting old. This is getting, you know,
Right.
exhausting." And so I'm glad it ended because it needed to.
Right. Yeah.
Just like NCIS proper should be done. It should be
Oh yeah. Oh
done.
yeah.
21 years. Mhm. Like there was someone that was like, "Oh, a show's been on X number of years. It must be good." And I was like, "That is not an indicator of it being good.
That is not true.
It is a moneymaker. That is why it's still on the air."
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
But yeah,
yeah. No.
we'll see.
Regardless of whether I keep on watching this one, I think I will start watching Hawaii in earnest,
Hmm.
just because I was really thinking about this the other day. Like the amount of shows that we have that will feature LGBT rep is going to be dwindled, and
Hmm.
so we have to watch the shows that actually have it, and Hawaii has it.
Oh, okay. Then I guess I'll watch
Um,
Hawaii.
yeah, the yeah, there's a one of the female NCIS agents is in a relationship with like their, I think it's like FBI liaison lady.
I love that concept. I love
Yeah.
it.
But like same goes for like Station 19 of like a show I've not watched but am familiar with, almost exclusively through like TikTok. And it's like I have to like this is a very
Yeah,
prominent gay
we
relationship.
have exactly. We have to be supporting what LGBTQ media we get because it, you know, it keeps going down. It keeps dwindling. And actually, sort of off topic, but sort of, you know, still within the same vein. I was reading something today on Twitter where they were talking about Our Flag and how like vastly different season one was from season two. And they talked about how season one was greenlit and they were basically given free reign to do whatever. So the
Mm,
queer rep was very great. It was well formulated storylines, you know, whatever. And season two, they, you know, obviously they got the renewal, but then there was a lot more heavy handing from HBO
right.
saying, no, you can't put that in. You can't do this. And it's just like, damn it. No wonder season two wasn't as good. Like, when we don't aren't allowed to have our stories because the rich white dudes say we don't want it that blatant, it messes things up. But yeah, so like again, we need to be very like cognizant and aware of certain kinds of stories that have been starting to get the axe.
Mm.
And it's, stories with people of color and queer stories that are like starting to dwindle, and we need to like hold on to the ones that are there because who knows how long they'll be there.
So we need to be moving on. So our next show is A Murder at the End of the World, episode 1 and 2, Home Fatale and the Silver Doe. And this is currently airing on FX, streaming on Hulu.
Yep.
Is it FX on Hulu? I don't know. What is the difference? I don't know.
I think it's just FX on Hulu. Like, I don't think it's actually airing on the television FX, but I could be wrong.
Okay. This is stupid.
It's so dumb.
This is stupid. Then it's just a Hulu. I'm not getting it. I'm not doing this again.
Because when I put it into my list, I like look to see if something streams on Hulu. I generally go to look and see if it airs on a television channel as well. And this one was like FX on Hulu, but it's not on FX. And I'm like, what? That's so confusing and dumb. Just call it Hulu then. Whatever. That's the world we live in now. But this show is so good.
It's incredible. I can say after 2 episodes that it's one of the best shows I've seen all year.
Yeah, going into it, like the synopsis, I read the synopsis and like it does not give it any, like it doesn't really give you an idea of how complex and complicated this story actually is. Like it literally, the synopsis is very simple in terms of like it says, okay, here's this character, Darby Hart, and she gets invited to this rich guy's retreat and somebody dies. Like literally that's basically the synopsis. I'm paraphrasing obviously.
Yeah.
But like that's the basis of the synopsis, and I'm like, but there's so much more to it than that. Like they described Darby in the synopsis as a Gen Z hacker type. And I'm like, that is not, I mean, yes, she knows how to do that stuff, but like, that is not all she is.
Right.
This girl is insanely smart and she's talented writer and she's just, she's one of my favorite female characters from this year. Like, and it's only been 2 episodes.
Yeah, and Emma Corrin is outstanding. They are so good in the show.
Yeah.
Like, just completely commanding. This is just such a great, like, pulpy Hitchcockian noir. Which is very apt from the episode title of the first episode of Home Fatale. Of the twist on Femme Fatale of the guy that you're not really sure you're supposed to trust.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because that guy that like she talks to at her book reading, or not talks, well, does she talk to him? I don't know. Or at least she sees him, and then she sees him again at her house, and then you find out that he's just an AI projection. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
So I think that was I mean, yes, there are a lot of twists in this show in the first 2 episodes, but that was one of the biggest ones that I was just like, excuse me, I need to process this for a minute.
Yeah. These episodes like are just, they're doing so much, and it's so wonderfully layered and textured. Like they're touching on artificial intelligence, and they're touching on billionaires who think they can change the world, and
it also touches a little bit on money being allowing situations to be manipulated, because she finds she basically watches this guy die, and then she reports it, and she goes and sees the dead body, and all of a sudden there's like a injection spot on his arm, and they're like trying to say, oh, he overdosed. And she's just like, that's not the proper spot for someone that's like does drugs regular, like she's like figuring this all out, and like, but she's being gaslit left and right about the things that she's seeing. And it seems like, based on the previews for like the rest of the series, like she's going to continue to be gaslit, and she's going to have to fight tooth and nail to investigate the loss of this man that means something to her. And that's, oh, so good. I'm so ready. I'm so ready for more.
Yes.
Also, Raul Esparza is just sitting at this table, and I'm just like, hello, sir. What are you doing here? He doesn't really say anything, so like you can't even discern him as a character yet, because you're like, he's just a dude at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, I recognize that face. I recognize that side profile. Because at first, when you first see him, it's a side profile. And I was like, wait a minute, is that Raul Esparza? And like, I had to wait like another 20 minutes before I saw him again. And like, you see his face, and I'm like, yep, that is. Yep, that's him.
That's him.
Oh, talented man. I really hope they don't just use him as a background thing. Like, I really hope he starts to get a bit of oomph to his character, because he has a commanding presence as well, and like it would just add to this show.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next show. Ghost UK, season 1, episode 1 and 2. Who do you think you are? And Guerrilla War. And so this is like the title indicates, the import from the British version of the CBS comedy that will soon come back for its third season. And it's a weird show to watch because the first 2 episodes are virtually identical to the CBS version.
I will say it's very unsettling to watch this, and the main, why can I not think of her name? The main girl that ends up being able to see the ghost. She's played by an actress that I know very well because I watch a lot of British programming. And she was on Call the Midwife for a very long time. And I adored her character on Call the Midwife. And so when she shows up on screen, I was like, wait a minute, how did I not realize that she's the main person on this? Like, how did I not know this? And it's been on for a good number of years. And so I was just like, I'm so stupid. And like, it's not like I don't watch British television, because I do. I just said I do. And so it's like, this is weird that I haven't watched this yet. Like, okay. But even going into watching this, when I watched Ghost CBS, I was talking with a friend of mine that had seen the UK version, and we were talking about characters, and they were like, you're going to like Thomas. And I was just like, okay. They're like, I just know you. You're going to like Thomas. And so I'm looking out for Thomas, because I didn't know any of the other ghost names. I just knew Thomas. And Thomas is a writer, poet kind of person. And I'm like, I could see why they think I like this character. I can't discern yet whether I like him or not, because I don't feel like we know enough about any of the ghosts yet to really like be like, oh, this is going to be a favorite. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it feels like there's more ghosts here.
There's definitely more ghosts.
Like the CBS version already felt like it had a lot of ghosts. Sometimes too many ghosts. This one feels like it has too many ghosts.
Yeah, it does.
Also, Robin the caveman, exclaiming about the car driving up.
Yes.
It's not quite hit the same way as Thor screaming land ship.
Yeah. Thor screaming landship is the best moment from one of the best moments from the CBS version.
Yeah.
It's very intriguing to see that some of the characters are exact replicas and like mirrors of their American counterpart, and some of them are similar. So like, we have the former frat boy turned businessman who died wearing, no pants. And
Yeah.
then on this version, he's the prime minister. It's like we've gone up a notch here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's even funnier when like she realizes who he is, when the main I can't keep saying the main girl. Whatever. She realizes who he is, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I read in the papers." And it's just like even funnier because like he's mortified to find out that there's this big huge scandal about his life.
Um,
Allison, that's her name.
Allison.
I can't remember her name.
Yeah. But yeah. As goes with the the place. The humor is a lot drier, but still
Mhm.
very funny.
Yeah.
Arguably funnier than like CBS's version.
I love British humor. Like it's my favorite kind of humor. So like yeah, I find this a little bit more funny than
Yeah.
the CBS. Like when he's going in with the drill and he's like, "Daddy's gonna drill a hole," and she's like, and Lady Button's like, "No, you're not. You're not going to do that." And it's just like so funny to hear her screaming at him, and he has no idea. And meanwhile, his wife is like, "No, no, you need to," or girlfriend, whatever she is. She's like, "No, no, you need to cover up that hole. Just cover it up." She's like, "The ghost will shut up if you just cover it up." And it seems to me like, like in the CBS version, the lady of the house, the lady character has they both have similar situations of their husbands were horrible people. But with CBS, or with the British version, it seems like he's even worse of a person than the CBS. Like the CBS version is very like tame compared to what it seems like Lady Button's husband.
Right.
I mean, he murdered her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 And uh the captain's like mix of like deep militarism and also like allusions to like his homosexuality, I feel
Oh
is
my
better done here than in the CBS version, where like the CBS
yes.
version felt like it was hitting that gong hard at first.
Yeah, like when he starts singing Pirates of Penzance, I'm like, "Oh, you're gay as fuck."
Yeah. So like
I was like,
this one felt like more subtle in a way that I
that song, you are gay.
yeah.
Anyways. It'll be interesting as we go forward to see like where like kind of they start to veer in their own directions, because I know that there is a point, but I'll be interested to see when that happens.
Right. So let's move on to our next show, which is Goosebumps, continuing from last week. The show's not good.
It just was not good at all. They
Uh,
tried bringing Slappy in, but it's just like no.
but like every Goosebumps does Slappy.
I know.
The movie did Slappy. The other shows have done Slappy. Like, and here's the thing. I didn't mention this last week, but when I was a kid, I could not watch Goosebumps
Mm-hmm.
because I fucking hate Slappy. I was terrified of Slappy. I could
Trust
not
me, I
watch
get it.
Goosebumps because I thought Slappy. I didn't know what episode Slappy would show up in, and I couldn't deal with it. And I still don't like it here. I don't like Slappy, the doll. It's not good.
Dolls are creepy. Like I am terrified of dolls. Like I don't like dolls. I don't like clowns. I don't like things that could potentially be a cross between a doll and a clownish figure. Like Slappy is a bit of all of that. And nope,
Nope.
nope.
No. No. Um. And here's the thing. I got to the 8th episode, and I went, "Why am I watching more of the show?"
There's only one episode left.
There's 2 more episodes left, aren't there?
No, there was 9. There's 9 episodes.
There's 9 episodes. Okay.
Yep.
Even so, I was like, "Why am I watching?"
But here's the thing, it kind of like basically ends with 8. Like if they had stopped at 8, it would have been beautifully ended. You know what I mean? Like the ending would have been great. It to the point of how mediocre this show was. Like it would have been a
Oh,
good ending for a mediocre show, whatever. But
yeah.
like episode 9, the kids go off to Seattle to kind of like get away after all the bullshit that they've been through. And Mr. Teacher Dude is trying to sell a novel about the experiences that he went through with this whole situation. And they tell him to write a different ending because the ending wasn't good enough. And so, like, they bring Slappy back, even though Slappy's been torn to pieces. And, like, it's just like, there was no point to this episode. There was no need for this episode. Like, just let it end with the kids surviving and going on their merry way and us implying what we want about everything. We don't need to see them in Seattle. There's no point to that. We don't need to see the parents finally realize that the kids were telling the truth the whole time about shit. Like it's just I'm like it was unnecessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So I don't have a whole lot more thoughts. I will say 2 things. One, I enjoyed seeing Lexa Doig on my screen again. 'Cause
Mhm.
I like her a lot from Andromeda, and also Arrow,
Yep.
more recently. But mainly, a lot of my affection for that actress comes from Andromeda.
Mhm.
And also, I need the show to understand that people of the opposite sex can just be friends.
Yep.
What's going what's going on, guys?
Oh I just it got so messy with all these kids too. Like they started to be like, "Oh, well we need Isabella to end up with Luke and Margot to have this weird triangle with the." I'm like, "No, we don't need none of that.
I
Like
don't
just
care.
let them be teenagers that are in a friend group because they're forced to be in a friend group because that's fun enough on its own. Like whatever. I will say my last thing about this show is that like Justin Long, what the hell convinced you that this was a good thing to sign on for? Like
What is Justin Long doing in the show? His performance is weird.
Oh yeah, there's a whole thing with a dog in the final episode and him and Fifi and it's dumb. It's stupid.
Yeah,
It's dumb.
yeah, yeah. But no, like
I just yeah, like
if you just had you could have just given me the James and Isabella shade hour, and I would have been fine with that.
yes. God, I love the two of them. Oh, And there is a scene, I will say, there is a scene in the final episode where they're in Seattle and they're like at some random party. I don't know how they got invited to this party or what is happening, but like these kids are all at a party and James and Isabella are talking to this girl. And she's like, if you have to explain your queerness, like they don't deserve to know your queerness. And they're like, yes. And I'm just like, I love the two of you. Like, I just absolutely love the two of you. And she's like, and I say that through my art. And they're like, oh my God, you're the most interesting person we've ever met. And it's just like, I love them. Because they're from small town where like people I guess don't do art. I don't know. But like this girl was like the most intriguing person they've ever met. And I'm like, good for you guys. You found another queer person to hang out with. Because I stand by that Isabella is queer. Don't try to put her with a guy. She is a lesbian.
Oh, yes.
And they tried to put her with Luke, and I'm just like, no, nah, that ain't happening. Or maybe it was Margot with Luke. I forget. I don't really care. Um, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Let's be honest here. Do the relationship entanglements matter? Absolutely not.
No. I will say this. Isabella coming out of nowhere and smacking the James clone in the head in the 4th episode completely sold me on that character.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like the comedic timing of her just coming out of nowhere swinging was so good.
Well, and everyone's like looking at her like she's crazy, and she's like, "It's not the real hem. Like, do you not see this goo all over the ground?" Like she's just like, "What?" And she's like, "Why does it smell like watermelon and Jolly Ranch?" Like that's probably like this show had funny moments. Like it had some real good zingers, and I'm like, listen, watermelon Jolly Rancher goo, okay. Not what I would have thought about, but okay.
That's good. Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Let's
just move on.
Let's just move on. To our next show, the Buccaneers. I did not catch up on this week. So tell me a little bit about the Buccaneers.
So, I forget if it's in episode 2 or episode 3. We kind of find out that she's not supposed to be the main girl, but let's be real, she's the main girl. God, why am I blanking on her name? She we find out that she is the product of her father having an affair with a woman, and then her and her sister, being raised as if they were 100% whole, full-blooded related sisters. And so she finds out this news, and she kind of goes on this emotional snit fit. And I understand, girl, you are 17 years old and you just found out that your life is a lie. I would be pissed too. But her sister gets all pissy with her, being like, you're ruining my moment. And it's just like, girl, calm down. That's the main issue I have with this show, is that you have to realize that these characters are meant to be young adult women, and they're spoiled young adult women. So you have to look at it from that perspective, because otherwise you're going to be annoyed as fuck by these characters all the time.
Right.
And I still get annoyed with them, but that's neither here nor there. But you realize that none of the men on this show are good people. They all have something either sinister about them or just typical care more about power than the relationship they're in with their wife kind of men. You know what I mean? With the exception of the Duke. The Duke actually legitimately seems like this really nice guy, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm we're 4 episodes in, and I'm there's gonna be something come out about this guy, that he's not what we've thought he is this whole time, because he is just so kind and so sweet, and it's just you are an enigma, sir. He doesn't want the typical girl that was paraded past him at this debutante thing at the beginning of the series, and like what he wants is this random girl he ran into on the beach, while he was painting, which he's not he's not supposed to let anybody know that he's a painter, because he's this mysterious guy, and he doesn't introduce himself as the Duke. He introduces himself as, I believe his name is Leo. um it's either Leo or Leon, whatever. Anyways, not important. um like, he introduces himself by his name, not his title. And so, like, I'm still waiting. I have this weird feeling that something's gonna come out that he's not this great guy, because I kind of like him. Like, I think he's the only character I like at this point, with the exception of the two girls that are secretly dating each other, like secretly like kissing each other and like hanging out together. Because I just love that. Lizzie is the one that came from America, and I'm just gonna call her the sister because I truly don't think they might have said her name, but it's not said often enough that I'm gonna remember. But like the sister of one of the obnoxious lord dudes, whatever, from Britain. Um, so it's a decent show. It's getting a little better.
All right, cool. So let's move on to our next show, which is Bob's Burgers, season 14, episode 6, entitled "Escape from Witch Island."
Did I watch this episode?
Which island is that? This is a wonderful subgenre of Bob's Burgers episodes where Mr. Fishoder makes Bob do something weird for money.
Oh, right. This I did watch this. I was like, wait, did I watch this episode? Yeah, they have like paint on their face or something. I don't know. Vaguely remember them having weird, like, it seemed like paint on their faces at the end.
Yeah.
Or am I wrong?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did it.
Again, I like Bob's Burgers, but like I'm not fully invested yet. But I like it.
But no, these episodes are always rather amusing, mainly because of Kevin Kline's vocal performance of Mr. Fishoder.
Wait, that's Kevin Kline?
It is.
Oh my god. That's like mind blowing right now. You're blowing my mind.
Yeah, they're always fun. This one has like a little bit more humanity to Mr. Fishoder than he usually has. As the show's version of like Mr. Burns. Because Mr. Fishoder, I think he owns like most of the town. So like he owns like most of the property, and most of the people in town pay rent to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, we usually get like one or two of these episodes a season of like Mr. Fishoder making Bob do something for like free rent or something.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate these episodes, and this one is fairly funny. But I also enjoy the B plot of Linda trying to teach the other kids how to have like an adult party.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that B plot.
Yeah, and really, really adds some fuel to the fire of maybe Tina is autistic.
Yeah, I remember it because Tina's wearing like this bluish dress, and I'm just like, what the frick is she wearing? But yeah, like there's definitely notes of the tism in Tina.
Yeah, and they've, to be fair, they have made that joke from the very first episode. So that has always been there. But very overall a very amusing episode. So let's jump to our last show of the week, which is Quantum Leap, Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Secret History. And I gotta tell you, Nazis being the secret foil of the episode is a much more novel concept when there aren't actual Nazis about
Yeah.
right now.
Yep.
Like 10 years ago, Nazi plot would have done great. Would have done great. Very entertaining. Right now, doesn't quite hit the same way.
Nope, not something we really want.
Yeah. But aside from that, still a very entertaining episode. It brings back Eliza Taylor as Hannah.
Honestly, I really enjoyed the whole Ben's excitement about Albert Einstein. Because I too once had that kind of excitement about Albert Einstein. I remember being hyper fixated on learning everything I could about Albert Einstein when I was younger. And so like I would have been cool if I'd like been on a campus very similar in time to Albert Einstein. But like I love also that Hannah seems to have recognized something in Ben, even though he's in a different person. And it opens up that conversation about him being a time traveler. And it'll be interesting to see if there's repercussions of that conversation.
Yeah, because there's the common theory / kind of fear that Hannah is somehow future related to like the Evil Leaper program, or has something to do with that, or like started that program in some way. And I did feel some of that throughout this episode. Especially when the episode brings up that, oh, hey, she has a photographic memory. And also, she has seen, like, this potentially devastating scientific formula.
Yeah. Even though she's burned it, she has a photographic memory.
Yeah.
Girl already knows it.
Yeah.
So is that going to come back into play? Yeah.
No, certainly not. But
never, not at all.
Yeah, but for right now, her and Ben have very good chemistry.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting them to kiss at the end of the episode.
No.
That's kind of a bold move. But also, it's that weird consent thing of like you're in someone else's body.
Yeah.
Making them do things that they won't remember. This is perhaps the farthest you can take that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, so this is something that continues to be kind of like not really a big thing that I have a problem with this show, but it's one of those things that like tickles the back of my brain and it kind of annoys me, is the whole concept of the hologram being there and this person talking supposedly to thin air and nobody commenting on it. And like Hannah finally commenting on something like that, it's like, oh, good. Somebody has sense here, because like this man has been walking around campus chatting to himself, and they're like, yeah, he seems like a sensible guy. Whatever, leave him alone. Like, what?
Yeah.
Or yes, let's bring him further into this plot, we could trust this guy. We literally walked behind him as he was shouting about Albert Einstein.
Yeah. To be fair, this is a very common quantum leap thing.
I know, but like I said, it's not a big detractor for me. It's just one of those things that I'm like, this is really annoying. And like, you could have come up with a better way to like handle that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I am interested in like what we'll see of Eliza Taylor as the show goes on, or as the season goes on. Like, when is the next time she will pop up?
Yeah.
Because the show has now kind of boxed itself in where like you want that character to come back, but also we've now we've now had it in a place of like she can't be like Clara Oswald, who just like randomly her just like appears in like different time periods and like random time periods. She is on like a very strict chronology now that like we have to follow.
Right.
And unless we want to make Eliza Taylor look markedly older than she is, it has to be vaguely like in this time period.
And now I have a question about, because again, I don't really know a whole lot about Quantum Leap's lore / capabilities. Can Ben control where he jumps to at ever?
No.
Can he ever control? So like, how else would he run into her again? Like, that's the other thing. Like,
right, yeah. And it could just be like the thing that this episode brings up, which is like the leap just Quantum Leap just wanted you to have a friend. Just thought you were lonely. So it could just be more of that, or they are fated to meet again, fated to be kind of intertwined. Who knows?
Yeah.
She is a character that intrigues me though. At least as the show is utilizing her.
Yeah. It's very interesting to see also Ben interact with, what's his name? Tom? Is that his name? Or am I getting that wrong? Is it Tom?
I think that's right.
forget.
Yeah.
But like seeing him interact with him, because there's some weird vibes between them for obvious reasons. And so like Ben has to trust him, and that's not something Ben wants to do. Like,
No.
so like that was an interesting element to this episode as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then everything happening with Ian, which trying to not be hoodwinked by Floriana Lima. Which was a nice guest appearance in this episode. But I don't know I've seen her in anything since like Supergirl. But I enjoyed her kind of menacing presence in this episode. So anything else?
No, I think we've really covered it.
We have indeed covered it. So that's it for this week. Like I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks, where we will be covering the new Monarch series on Apple TV Plus and the return of Doctor Who.
Woot
woot. Which already has such wonderful discourse surrounding it.
I haven't seen any of it, and I'm fine to be blissfully unaware.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
Honestly, I purposely don't dive into certain fandoms anymore. Like, I know from like my experiences in various fandoms and various internet discourse that there are certain shows that I will never dive into a fan group for. Or movie series. Like, I don't dive into Star Wars. I don't dive into Star Trek. I don't dive into Doctor Who. These are three very big franchises that I'm just like, nope. I'll have my fun little opinions and leave them to myself.
Yeah, I didn't seek these out. I just saw them on my For You tab on Twitter.
I don't even look at the For You tab on my Twitter, so maybe that's why I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. So until then, Mads, where can we find you online?
You can find me at DorothyNYC89 on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You know, the usual. I think Blue Sky too. Yeah, I still have a Blue Sky. Is that still a thing? Is Blue Sky still a thing?
I think so. Yeah. And you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky. You'll figure. True coding. You'll figure it out. And you can follow the podcast on all the regular places at Not Another TV Podcast, and you can email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com. Any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, show recommendations, goat submissions that you have. You can listen to previous episodes of the podcast on Apple and YouTube, along with any other podcatching device you have. Until next week, please remember, don't go in the ocean, none of your business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.